Bubba Wallace has had his racing career turned upside down, and it seems like the 2311 racing driver may be gone for good. The co-owner of the team, Denny Hamlin, has slammed one of the most controversial drivers on the grid, and while it was definitely something to think about, it just goes to show that Wallace may not be for this sport anymore. We have a lot to cover in this video, but our main topic would be the blunter that saw Wallace and Blaney left without points, and whether or not this was the final nail in the coffin for Wallace's racing career. Don't go anywhere. We have 8 minutes of video action for you guys. Everything seemed to be going in the right direction for Bubba Wallace during Sunday's Geico 500 race, but a last lap wreck saw him spin out while leading the pack. His leading position was threatened by Ryan Blaney, who drives for Team Penske, and with both drivers making contact, it resulted in Wallace's race ending in the most frustrating manner possible. Before we go into this matter, make sure to like our video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification posts. Now back to Wallace's prodigy. So it goes without saying that this is by far the first, and as things stand, far from the last, incident that Wallace will be part of. But at this point, one couldn't help but ask, what's going on with Wallace? Why can't he just keep his car straight and finish races without crashing into other drivers? If you recall correctly, his actions towards Kyle Larson last year were also very tribal, to say the least, and that's where his downfall as a driver has started. But after doing a similar thing to Team Penske driver Ryan Blaney, when it comes to blocking him in an inappropriate way, it's just evidence that Wallace has started to lose his driving sense, and maybe it's time for him to hang on to the boots. This isn't just my criticism or bias towards the 2311 racing driver. It has been said by his co-owner as well. So before you start throwing rocks at me and bash me for my statement, make sure to hear what Denny Hamlin had to say about Wallace's situation after the Geico 500. According to Hamlin, the decision that Wallace made in the last lap of the race was bad, to say the least, and drivers like Tony Stewart and Dale Earnhardt Jr. would have done something much different. When talking about this matter, the co-owner of the 2311 Racing was asked by Jared Allen, at what point in your career does that switch flip for you where you are thinking, okay, I don't need to make that block? Trying to point out as to why Wallace wasn't in a huge need of doing the block he did. To this, Hamlin replied, well, it changed probably. I'm gonna get the timeline wrong, but probably 6 or 7 years ago, when NASCAR put those big A spoilers on our super speedway car. So from around 2006 to 2012, the cars had a lot less drag and less horsepower, which is why you saw a big bubble effect, which I think we need to start to get back to, because these cars are so planted to the racetrack, we're running into each other so hard that wrecks are inevitable. I'm not saying wrecks are a bad thing, because it makes it less of a skill game. You saw Dale Jr., Tony Stewart back in the day. They were so good at working the lines and really manipulating the competition around their air to make their car go forward. It's evident that what Wallace has done has stirred up some more drama. From all the people out there, the co-owner of the team he drives for has been the first one to throw stones towards the driver. Although Hamlin does have a lot of respect for Bubba and has been one of the first drivers to defend him after his anger outburst last year in Vegas against Larson, now it is evident that the veteran also understands what kind of ticking bomb drives the team he co-owns with Michael Jordan. And keep in mind that this comes just a couple of weeks after Wallace had a disappointing race at Dakota, when the crash with Larson cost him the third DNF of 6 races overall, saying that if he continues like this, he should definitely be replaced or he should retire, to say the least. A couple of races go by and Wallace does what he did after comfortably leading the race in the Geico 500. So it does make you think as to whether or not he has the motivation and the killer instinct inside of him to continue racing in one of America's greatest racing sports. By pointing out that there doesn't always have to be a block in a situation in which Wallace has found himself in Talladega, Hamlin has basically confirmed that a win for the 2311 racing driver was a true possibility if he could have kept his cool. Unfortunately, this isn't something that Wallace is known for, and we have to remind you about the situation that escalated between him and Kyle Larson at 2022's Las Vegas Motor Speedway. This was the race in which Wallace decided to take things into his own hands and brutally push Larson out of the way after being pinched into the wall in a fair and square racing manner. While doing so, they took out Christopher Bell, one of the main candidates for the Cup Series championship, which is why the one race penalty that Wallace received for his actions was considered a slap on the wrist by one of his fiercest haters, Kyle Petty. But ever since then, the general opinion of the NASCAR world has been that Wallace would come in the next season as a changed man, and one that could effectively be involved in the top 4 at the end of the season. As of now, we're seeing a blunt version of the 2311 racing driver, and it's very evident that there is a lot to improve in his skill set as a driver, but he may no longer have his willpower and his ability to continue pushing through the NASCAR world. Rumors have started to escalate about his potential retirement or replacement from 2311 racing due to Wallace saying it himself after Coda's disappointing finish. And what happened here in Talladega only goes to enhance these talks. So what should have Wallace done according to Hamlin? Something that would have helped him nudge all of these inconsistent talks about his potential retirement? If someone gets beside you for the lead, you still got a 50-50 shot at winning. The top line behind Blaney was all screwed up. It was disorganized. The bottom line, since it was on the yellow line, was more formed. Bubba Wallace was going to push from the inside, more likely to clear Blaney. You don't have to block. There's only one block that has to be made. That's right at the start-finish line. Someone getting to the outside is not a do-or-die moment for winning. Now, apart from Wallace retiring from the sport, there is more bad news coming at him with the speed of light. Him losing his long-lasting friendship with Ryan Blaney. Both of them have been very close friends outside of the NASCAR world, as Blaney was Wallace's best man at his wedding. But after the Talladega incident, there were vast speculations that the race had caused a dent in their friendship. To be honest, I can see this happening. After all, you're racing for the win, and that move that Wallace made was cowardly, to say the least. When Hamlin is not defending you for your moves, you are more than certain that you did something wrong, and you need to work your way through it. At last, Wallace doesn't seem to have any willpower to push through the narrative of always being the one at fault, even though that is the outcome of every incident that he's been involved in this season. So it's definitely something he would have to rethink if he wants to continue with his tenure in NASCAR as a racing driver. Blaney has diminished the talks about a potential beef between him and Wallace, however, and whether that's been done in the good spirit of the sport and their close relationship outside of the track, time will tell. But as of now, Blaney said, "But you know, everyone's competitors out there, and it's not like I'm going to race Bubba any less hard than anyone else. We're trying to beat him just as much as anybody else, so that definitely stinks when it's your buddy. Maybe if it's someone you don't really like too much, you wouldn't blink an eye at it. But when it's your buddy, you're just like, man, that just kind of stinks that one of us got turned." With this in mind, what do you think about Wallace's future in the sport? Do you think that it's finally time for him to think about retirement due to his tribal actions against his colleague early in 2023? Or do you think that he has the willpower to fight back and proclaim himself as one of the better drivers in the sport? Let us know in the comments below. And after you do that, make sure to click on the NASCAR logo to stay connected with more content from our channel.